You know that person who never really asks for help, even when they're drowning? The one who laughs off chaos, handles crises like it's Tuesday, and somehow always figures it out on their own. The one who doesn't post their entire life online, doesn't need validation from strangers, and can sit in silence without feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, that's probably Gen X. And here's what most people don't realize: that independence you admire, that calm in the storm, it wasn't a choice, it was survival. It was learned in empty houses after school, during economic crashes their parents couldn't explain, and in the quiet aftermath of divorce papers signed in silence. Gen X didn't grow up learning resilience from self-help books. They learned it because no one was coming to save them. Before we go deeper, I want you to know something. I spent weeks researching this, diving into psychology studies, talking to Gen Xers, understanding what shaped them. So if this resonates with you, or if you know someone like this, do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. It helps more than you know, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for what's coming next. Let's rewind for a second. Picture this: it's the late 1970s, early 80s. A kid comes home from school, the house is quiet, mom's at work, dad's at work, or maybe dad doesn't live here anymore. Maybe mom's on her second marriage. The kid makes a sandwich, turns on the TV, does homework alone, figures out dinner alone. No one's checking in, no one's hovering, there's no group chat, no tracking app, just silence and responsibility. That kid, they learned something early: the world doesn't pause for you, no one's going to hold your hand, so you adapt. You become self-sufficient, not because you're brave, but because you have no other option. Psychologist Twenge, who studies generational differences, found that Gen X develop what she calls defensive independence. It's not confidence, it's armor. It's the belief that you can't rely on systems, institutions, or even people because they've already let you down. And when you grow up watching your parents lose jobs, lose marriages, lose stability, you stop expecting safety. You start expecting change. Now let's talk about skepticism. Gen X doesn't trust easily. They don't buy into hype. They don't follow trends blindly, and that's not because they're cynical, it's because they watch the world promise things and fail to deliver. They saw their parents work for companies that laid them off without a second thought. They watched politicians lie. They saw advertising manipulated. They learned early: question everything. And honestly, that skepticism saved them. It made them adaptable, it made them resourceful. While other generations might wait for instructions, Gen X just handles it. The power goes out, they've got candles. The economy crashes, they've been through worse. Life throws chaos at them and they shrug, not because they don't care, but because they've been trained to expect disaster. Let me ask you something. Drop your age and where you're from in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are Gen X, or how many of you grew up with Gen X parents. Because here's the thing: if you did, you probably know this next part already. Gen Xers are the people who show up. They're the ones who quietly handle the hard stuff. The ones who take care of aging parents, raise their own kids, hold down jobs, and never complain. They're the middle managers, the nurses, the teachers, the ones keeping things running while everyone else is busy being loud on the internet. And no one notices, because Gen X doesn't perform their competence, they just do the work. But here's what people miss: that strength, it comes with a cost. Because here's the emotional contradiction. Gen X is strong, yes, but they're also exhausted. They're independent, but they're lonely. They're calm on the surface, but underneath, they're carrying decades of unprocessed grief. Grief for the childhood they didn't get. Grief for the stability they never had. Grief for all the times they had to be adults when they were still a kid. Psychologist Erik Erikson talked about identity formation during adolescence, how we need guidance and stability to figure out who we are. But Gen X didn't get that. They got latchkeys and divorce and uncertainty. So they built their identity around one thing: survival. And survival doesn't leave much room for softness. Here's a scenario: a Gen Xer sits at a family gathering, everyone's talking, laughing, and sharing feelings. Someone asks them how they're doing, they smile. "I'm fine," they say, and they mean it, because to them, fine doesn't mean happiness. Fine means functional, fine means I'm handling it, fine means I'm still standing. But inside, they're thinking about the bills, the aging parent who won't admit they need help, the kid who's struggling, the job that's draining them, and they won't say any of it, because asking for help feels like failure. because they've spent their entire life proving they don't need anyone. And that's the silent pain of Gen X. They're surrounded by people, but they're alone. They're capable, but they're tired. They're strong, but they're breaking. And no one sees it because they've gotten so good at hiding it. Now, here's where I want to hear from you. Do you know someone like this? Someone who never complains, never asks for help, but you can tell they're carrying the weight of the world? Comment below. Tell me about them, because this generation deserves to be seen. But let me tell you something beautiful. That pain, it didn't just break them, it transformed them. Gen X became emotionally intelligent in a way most people never achieve. They learned to read people, to sense tension, to navigate conflict. They became the mediators, the problem solvers, the ones who stay calm when everyone else is panicking. Because when you grow up in chaos, you learn to find order. When you grow up alone, you learn to understand yourself. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived unimaginable suffering, once said that suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. And Gen X found meaning in their survival. They learned that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up every single time. They learned that independence isn't about not needing people. It's about being okay when people aren't there. They learned that resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build in the wreckage. And here's what they don't say out loud, but what they know in their bones. They survived, not perfectly, not without scars, but they made it. They raised kids in a way they weren't raised. They showed up in ways no one showed up for them. They built lives from nothing, and they did it without a manual, without a safety net, without applause. They are the bridge between the past and the future. The generation that remembers before the internet but learned to navigate after. The generation that grew up with nothing but gave everything. The generation that was forgotten but never stopped showing up. Think of Gen X like this. They're the trees that grew in rocky soil. No one gave them water, no one gave them sun, but they sent their roots deep, deeper than anyone expected, and they learned to survive on their own. And now, they stand tall, weathered, and strong, providing shade for everyone else. Quiet, unnoticed, essential. If this touches you, if you see yourself in this, or if you finally understand someone you love a little better, subscribe to this channel. Share this video. Let's make sure Gen X knows they're not invisible. Let's make sure they know their strength didn't go unnoticed. And to every Gen Xer watching this, you did good, you're still doing good. And it's okay to rest now. It's okay to let someone else carry the weight for a while. You don't have to be fine all the time. You just have to be you.